to say. Thank you very much.
Without objection.
I appreciate that. So, Mr. Patel, and it isn't just the domestic terrorism operations section. Under your watch, agents are fully diverting their attention to these anti-immigrant and city takeover operations, leaving our children vulnerable to dangerous networks of online predators, both domestic and international. You pulled more than 120 FBI agents from their normal duties to operate sobriety checks and conduct traffic stops, exposing the FBI's fleet of unmarked cars and thereby making it harder for the FBI to combat violent criminal gangs, foreign intelligence services, and drug traffickers in the process.
That's simply not true. If we were not able to do two things at one time, how would we be?
What began as a pointed question quickly turned into one of the most emotionally charged exchanges of the hearing. Representative Lucy McBath of Georgia confronted FBI Director Kash Patel over his leadership, his personnel decisions, and whether the Bureau is adequately protecting Americans from political violence. This moment matters because it goes directly to public trust in federal law enforcement at a time of rising fear and division. If you want clear, factual breakdowns of moments like this, make sure to subscribe so you do not miss our coverage.
It's back. The gentlelady from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for coming in today, Mr. Patel. In the past few months, the country has experienced a string of horrific, high-profile attacks that have been motivated by racial hatred or political ideology. A shooter attacked the CDC headquarters, firing hundreds of rounds and killing a police officer. An arsonist set fire to the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro's residence, with the governor and his family actually inside. Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were assassinated earlier this year. Clark and Charlie Kirk was murdered last week. Bomb threats have been made against HBCUs and the DNC, and just the list goes on and on. I only have just a few minutes today, so I don't want to take a lot of time to go into all the countless and devastating violent crimes and incidents that have happened at our schools or on our streets and in our communities that have just been happening all year long. Mr. Patel, just yes or no, is this type of political violence ever acceptable in your eyes?
No.
I'm glad that we agree that these heinous acts designed to instill fear and division in our nation are never, ever acceptable, yet each of these incidents has recently taken place under your watch. The FBI's website states that protecting the United States from terrorist acts is the FBI's #1 priority, including from domestic terrorists. Is this still your #1 priority?
Domestic terrorism?
Preventing domestic terrorism.
Our #1 priorities are protecting the homeland and international terrorism and crushing violent crime, and domestic terrorism sort of interlays between both of those.
Okay, so well, then I'm glad that you're giving us the right answer, but unfortunately, your actions kind of tell a different story. Earlier this year, you granted the ranks of the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Operations Section. This is the section of the FBI that is most directly responsible for addressing political violence in our country by preventing attacks from occurring and effectively responding to them if they do. The agents in this section are the ones who stopped an individual stockpiling weapons, who planned to attack schools and churches in Florida and seized bombs made by an ISIS sympathizer in New Orleans. And instead of ensuring that this section has all the resources that it needs at a time when its mission is critical, you fired its decorated veteran FBI agents who have served their country proudly under Republican and both Democratic presidents, and you scrapped the tools that they developed to fight domestic terrorism, including the National Domestic Terrorism Incident Database.
I mean, most of that is just not true. We have 1,700 current DT managed programs. We're up 300% in the amount of cases we brought against nihilistic, violent extremists, including 764, wishing to harm our children. The FBI and the men and women are getting after that problem set more than ever because I've unleashed them to do so. And any situation that these tragic occurrences across the country are somehow singularly my fault or disgusting because that watershed goes down to the men and women at the FBI.
Mr. Patel,
and they are not responsible for it.
Chairman,
I'm happy to work with you to get them what they need.
Gentlelady controls the time. Unanimous consent request. You'll state a request.
Thank you very much. Into the record, an article from Reuters titled FBI Scales Back Staffing, Tracking of Domestic Terrorism, Probe Sources Say. Thank you very much.
Without objection.
I appreciate that. So, Mr. Patel, and it isn't just the domestic terrorism operations section. Under your watch, agents are fully diverting their attention to these anti-immigrant and city takeover operations, leaving our children vulnerable to dangerous networks of online predators, both domestic and international. You pulled more than 120 FBI agents from their normal duties to operate sobriety checks and conduct traffic stops, exposing the FBI's fleet of unmarked cars and thereby making it harder for the FBI to combat violent criminal gangs, foreign intelligence services, and drug traffickers in the process.
That's simply not true. If we were not able to do two things at one time, how would we be
Patel, I
seizing
reclaim
record
my
amounts
time.
of
I
fentanyl?
reclaim my time.
23,000
Chairman, I'd like to
violent
enter
felons have been
into the
arrested.
Time belongs to the
Consent
gentlelady.
More than twice as many as
request.
last
Time belongs to
year.
the gentlelady from Georgia.
Thank you very much. And this request basically is, it is an article from Reuters, which quotes law enforcement officers familiar with agents who once covered child exploitation cases, but now focus on immigration child exclusive. Thousands of agents diverted to Trump immigration track down. Mr. Patel, in the short time I have left, your tenure as director of FBI has been somewhat problematic. Americans are definitely less safe under your watch. You have gutted the FBI's ability to keep safe from domestic terrorism. You have sent FBI agents to conduct traffic stops and round up hardworking immigrants who pose no danger to public safety. People even President Trump referred to as good, long-time workers. Your job is to protect and serve the American public.
Time of the
You have
gentlelady.
spent your time protecting heinous individuals and using the FBI to serve as a political circus. You at times have appeared unequipped.
Time of
This
the
country
gentlelady has
deserves better, and
expired.
I yield.
Gentlelady yields
May I
back.
respond?
Sure can.
Simply put, what is it? Are we failing? If we're failing, how are we arresting 23,000 violent felons? Twice as many as this time last year. Are we failing? Because if we're failing, how are we seizing 1,500 kilograms of meth, 25% increase from last year? Are we failing? Because we captured 4 top 10 FBI most wanted from around the world in 7 months. That's more than the entirety of the last administration. Are we failing? Because we put 1,500 child predators in prison. Are we failing? Because we dismantled 300 human trafficking networks. Which is it? You don't like me, that's fine. But don't you dare disparage the men and women of the FBI that are producing record results in historic fashion to protect this country. They are kicking ass for America, and they're going to continue to do so.
And we appreciate your leadership. The gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
Representative McBath opened by laying out a grim backdrop. She cited a string of high-profile attacks across the country, including politically and racially motivated violence, arson targeting elected officials, assassinations of public servants, bomb threats against institutions, and killings linked to extremist ideology. Her message was clear. This is not abstract policy. This is about lives lost, families traumatized, and communities living in fear. She asked Director Patel a direct yes or no question. Is political violence ever acceptable? Patel answered no, a point of agreement that briefly unified the room. McBath acknowledged that agreement, but immediately pivoted to what she argued is the real issue, whether the FBI under Patel's leadership is living up to its stated mission. The FBI's own website says its #1 priority is protecting the United States from terrorist threats, including domestic terrorism. McBath asked whether that is still true. Patel responded by broadening the definition, saying the Bureau's top priorities include protecting the homeland from international terrorism, crushing violent crime, and addressing domestic terrorism as an overlapping threat. McBath then delivered the core of her criticism. She accused Patel of weakening the FBI's domestic terrorism operations at precisely the moment when political violence is surging. She pointed to staffing changes in the Domestic Terrorism Operations Section, the unit responsible for preventing ideologically driven attacks. She highlighted past successes by those agents, including stopping planned attacks on schools and churches and seizing explosives tied to extremist sympathizers. This clash revealed a deeper disagreement that viewers should understand. McBath's argument focused on allocation of resources and mission drift, suggesting agents were being pulled away from counterterrorism and child exploitation work to focus on immigration enforcement and other priorities. Patel's defense focused on output: arrests made, drugs seized, traffickers dismantled, and fugitives captured. One side measured effectiveness by focus and preparedness. The other measured it by results and numbers. If you value coverage that explains these distinctions instead of just amplifying the shouting, subscribe now so you stay informed. McBath entered multiple Reuters reports into the record, citing anonymous law enforcement sources who said domestic terrorism staffing and tracking had been scaled back, and that agents who once worked child exploitation cases were reassigned to immigration-related operations. She accused Patel of diverting FBI agents to tasks like traffic stops and sobriety checks, arguing that doing so exposed undercover assets and undermined efforts against gangs, foreign intelligence services, and drug trafficking organizations. Patel flatly denied these claims, saying the FBI is capable of doing multiple missions at once, and pointed to record numbers of arrests and seizures as proof. McBath, nearing the end of her time, delivered a blunt assessment. She said Americans are less safe under Patel's leadership and accused him of politicizing the Bureau and protecting the wrong people while vulnerable communities pay the price. Then came Patel's rebuttal, and it was one of the most emotional moments of the hearing. He rattled off a list of accomplishments: tens of thousands of violent felons arrested, massive drug seizures, top fugitives captured, thousands of child predators imprisoned, and hundreds of human trafficking networks dismantled. He challenged the idea that the FBI is failing and defended the rank-and-file agents, saying criticism of his leadership should not translate into attacks on the men and women carrying out the work. This exchange is important because it highlights a fundamental tension shaping the FBI right now. Is success defined by statistics and enforcement numbers, or by strategic focus on emerging threats like political extremism? And who gets to decide when trade-offs are justified? If you value continued reporting that helps you understand not just what was said, but why it matters for public safety and democracy, subscribe and stay with us.